we'll get going. So, welcome to, I guess this be session 2. Stamper took care of session 1 for me, but session 2 of day 9 of the Global Lacrosse Summit. I'm joined today by Hopkins assistant coach Tiana Wallpher. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Appreciate you being here. So for the people that were in on the main page, Tiana was kind enough to do a PDF document. There is a take home or a follow to the presentation that you're able to download. So you should be able to find it there. Tiana, you know what? I mean, I could give you a pretty good intro, but I always think it's good coming from the panelist. I mean, I can't possibly cover the UMBC, the Towson High School, that kind of stuff. So you take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brad, for doing all of this and just having me on here. I'm really excited, and thank you to everyone who's joining in now, and maybe we'll watch later. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation. I'm going to share screen and make sure that this works. So let me know if this is going to go ahead and work. Let's see here. Can you see me yet?
Not yet. Still see. Just go share screen and then select the window, I think. You on a Mac?
Yeah, here we go. That should work now.
There you go. Yep.
All right. There we go. Yeah, just the privacy and everything. I had to make sure that was good before I started. So should be good to go now. Can you see the screen?
Yep. Looks awesome.
All right. Perfect. So, like you said, I'll do my introduction right after this slide, but we're going to go over the zone defense and key concepts and drills to kind of help build success. Zone defense is different. You see a lot of teams, you start using it more and more. At Towson, we used it. Penn State uses it. Syracuse, Stony Brook. So you got a lot of teams switching to this set. And I just kind of wanted to go over the knowledge that I had, share it with everyone watching, and then just some drills that helped me, continues to help players not only in a zone, but just defense in general. So just more so about me. I didn't include high school, but I went to Mount Hebron. And I think before going through all of this, I wouldn't be where I am without the coaches that I had and the coaches that I coach alongside now. I've been very lucky, and I would not be where I am without them. So I started at UMBC freshman year. And if you guys see in the parentheses, I listed the defenses that we played there. Tony Gyro was the coach. I'd known him since I was little, like 7, 8 years old, and he had always believed in me, and he was a great, first-year coach to have. Him and Alex Mundy introduced me to defense and the collegiate level, and at that point I was actually playing midfield too, so I got to learn the offensive side from Amy Pelt-Slade, who just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. So you've got a great core group there. And then after my freshman year, I transferred to Towson, where I played for my final 3 years in college. And there we played a zone, backer, man-to-man, so kind of hit every defense that you could. Sonia LaMonica is the head coach. Mike LaMonica is kind of like the offensive coordinator. Katie Doolittle-Feely was there my sophomore year. And Michael Molster at that point was a volunteer assistant coach like I am now at Hopkins, and he later became the defensive coordinator at Towson for my junior and senior year. He's now at Penn State. But Towson's really where I first got introduced to zone. I came in and we just started practicing it right away, and my role became the rover, which is the person standing in the middle. If you see that image, your job is to yell, call people off their players if the girl comes in the middle, and, trying to be big and be quick and watching the ball. I've been lucky enough to play in the Pro League in the WPLL. I play for the Braves, still for Sonia LaMonica, Lauren Schwartzman, Amy again, and Jesse Morgan's the GM. So again, surrounded by some great people. The players, unbelievable. Kind of stick to just the man-to-man defense. Pro League's different. They have different rules. So you don't see a lot of zone, but maybe one team might introduce that. After I graduated, I joined Towson on the sideline. I was the volunteer assistant, and I was able to coach alongside Michael Molster, who really taught me a lot about the zone. So that was really fun, and a lot of credit owed to him for teaching a lot of that. And I currently am at Johns Hopkins University. I am the volunteer assistant. So if any of you joined in on Coach Janine Tucker's presentation, it was awesome. She did kind of the offensive side. I'm going to do the defensive side, but I work alongside with Tara Singleton, who is unbelievable. She's tenacious defender at Loyola and now just a phenomenal coach, and I'm really lucky to kind of see and learn from her. And then you got Steele Stanwyck, who, you know, he's a legend himself, so it's been great. So going into everything, just what to expect. If you have the PDF, you can look at that.
Hold on. I got to jump in here. That's pretty humble introduction here. Like,
I just wanted to stick to the defense. It's fine.
That's pretty humble. You know, your first year in WPLL, what happened?
Well, my first year in WPLL, we made it to the championship and didn't win, but the next year we won the championship this past year. And I'm sure you're going to make me say it. I made the all-star team. Humbled by that, to be surrounded by some phenomenal players. You know, credit to my teammates for helping me get that recognition.
Yes, I was going to make you say it, so I'm glad you did, because there's more awards, there's more accolades. You know, I'll leave it at that. People can hit the Google machine and go on there. But, yeah, I mean, WPLL champ and all-star. So thank you for coming aboard, helping us out.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, thank you for having me. It's been fun to listen to everyone and, you know, learn a lot myself. You can never learn too much. You never know too much. There's always something to learn. And hopefully I can do that for everyone watching today. So what we're going to go over is just the 8-meter depicting spots. What we call them are kind of hot spots. And then we're going to show it with the zone setup. Typically a zone is a 4-1-2. So that means 4 up top, 1 in the middle, and 2 behind. We're going to go over the positional responsibilities, snowflakes, which you'll learn what that means in a little bit. And then the difference between defending a drive-heavy team versus a feed-heavy team. So you'll see that the zone has to adapt a little bit differently for those type of teams. And we'll go over that. And there's some film in between everything, so it's not just me talking and you staring at a screen. And at the end, we're going to go over some zone defensive drills. You know, if we run out of time, I'll have this PowerPoint and Brad can share it. I'll have the videos. If you want me to send you the videos, I can, and hopefully they work on a computer, and we'll just roll with it if it doesn't. So we'll go ahead and continue. So I'm going to start off with the quote. I got this from Coach Janine Tucker, you know, who's done this however many times, and she's just great at it. So I wanted to just kind of get her feedback. And this is a quote that stuck with me since I was a freshman in college, and it's actually my high school coach who sent it to me. Our greatest glory consists not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Mistakes need to happen to improve, and success comes after failure. I think this is something really important to know, especially playing defense and especially playing a zone for the first time or running through and it's still fresh. You're going to make mistakes, whether it's you as a coach, you as a player. It's going to happen. It needs to happen. That's the only way that you can learn. I used to get yelled at by Michael Molster all the time because I would try to play almost like a backer and I try to do too much. And he said that I needed to let the mistakes happen so that we could fix it so that it didn't happen in the game. And I think that's something really important, something that, you know, I still hold true now as a coach and still as a player. So going over the 8-meter spots, if you were in on Coach Janine Tucker, she went over this a little bit. The only thing missing is the hub, which is the inside, but we're focusing on defense. So you got the 1 and 2 spots behind. You got the 3 and 7 spots, which are on the elbows. And then up top, you got the 4, 5, and 6 spots. So if you're looking, this is just typical spots, how we talk defensively, offensively at Hopkins, just to make things a little bit more clear. This is looking at it with the zone. So like I said, it's that 4-1-2 set. So you got 4 up top. You got the middle person who's called a rover. That's the position that I played when playing a zone. And then you got 2 behind. So you see all the setup there, the exterior and the inside, and we'll go over whose job is what each person has to do. So the job of the rover, job of the exterior, both reflect a snowflake. Looking at the rover, their job, my job, was to watch the cutters that came on the inside. So you're standing there in the middle, you see that triangle shape. Any cutters that came inside, it was my responsibility to try to cover them. And because of 3 seconds, you had to be able to check out, or how you could reset the 3 seconds was get on another player on the inside. I think that's something always important to remember. You don't always have to step out of the 8 meter here in these spots. If another cutter is coming in, you can go ahead and pick up that person and that player, and your 3 seconds resets. That saves you a lot of time and honestly saves you a lot of energy from having to run back and forth, inside and out. But looking at the snowflake shape, the reason why we refer to this as a snowflake is just because you are moving in and out at different angles. So you might be following a player going out one way, and because the ball is rotating, you might have to check out a different way. It's important to keep your eye on the ball, especially as a rover. Always said 70-30. 70% of the time you're watching a ball, 30% of the time you're watching whatever else the player. And it's important because as a rover, you need to see where the ball is going. You need to make sure you're on the right player. And if a ball is thrown inside, you got to be able to knock it down, intercept it, or somehow come up making a play. So this is a clip from me my senior year. I believe we are playing JMU. So I am right here. If you lose me, I have knee bands on, so it's not hard, and I'm the person in the middle running around. So there I am here. Just watching my movement, I am focusing on the cutters here. I'm talking, communicating. Another thing, as a rover, you've got to use names. You can't just say out, out. People aren't going to know what you're talking about, and then you're going to get the 3-second call. So I'm checking in on players. So I'm able to stay inside for a long time. That's another player, so less 3 seconds. So I'm able to rotate, and I'm trying to watch the ball as much as possible. When I know the time's going, I check out low, like in that triangle, and then I reset. It doesn't always look like that. I'm just going to go ahead and say that now. That's very pretty, and I wish every time was like that. And I know that there are some years that I definitely was up there at the top with fouls. I think it was my junior year, 3 seconds wasn't a big factor. That's when they made it a minor foul. So that was great. Love that. But then they made it back to a major because, you know, teams had some success playing some zones. Stony Brook's another one. So now, you know, it's back to a major with the 3 seconds. But, you know, trying to get it to where you only get 3-second fouls minimum. Definitely get them out of the way in the beginning. As a rover, I would always just go ahead and try to stretch the 3 seconds to see how the referees were actually calling it. So if they were calling it very fast, like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, and they call it, I would know, and I would have to adjust. And this was actually okay because then our whole defense knew. It became a problem if you kept repeating it and then putting them on the line and having them score on 8 meters. So that's something to keep in mind as well, but definitely test the waters. You know, use those 3 seconds, try to stretch it and just see how referees are calling it. Sometimes they're more lenient than others, so you just got to adjust. So now going over to the job of the exterior, we see those snowflakes again. The snowflakes are really, really important for the exterior. The reason being is they are moving in and out of the 8 meter constantly. If you are not moving, if you're standing still, you're doing something wrong. So you got to know where the ball is. So the same thing as a rover. That's going to help you with your positioning, the check-ins and check-outs. Looking here, the ball is in the 7th spot. You know that this player over here on the 3rd spot's got to be in, but it's going to be a little bit different if the ball is over here at the 5 spot. They're not going to be all the way checked in here into the 8 meter. They're going to be out a little bit just in case the ball rotates over, not to get shooting space. Something to really know. I've been asked a question, why play zone defense? You know, why not just play man-to-man? And I think that something people kind of misinterpret is to play zone defense if defenders can't play 1v1. That's not true. That's actually might make the defense even more vulnerable. You have to still be good at 1v1 defense. And I'll go into a little bit more, and it becomes apparent when it's a drive-heavy team. You get a lot of players having to shift over, and you get huge gaps, and it really leaves the zone vulnerable. But to that question, zone does help prevent some drive-heavy teams, especially if you still have that 1v1 defense, and it's still strong defense. And, still staying aware of the 3 seconds, in and out, constant movement, constant communication, using names. You got to know who's to the right of you. You got to know who's to the left of you. You just saying in, out, cutter, that's not enough, not nearly enough, and it's not going to help your zone defense. So here's another clip. My senior year, we're playing Hofstra. Hofstra's a very athletic team, very quick, really focused on the exterior, moving in and out, and helping me as the rover move in and out, because if there's multiple cutters, I can't guard multiple people at once. So you'll really see the backside coming in and helping. When the ball is over here, if the ball's over here, this backside really coming in and helping. So really pay attention to that as we watch it. So the ball's low here, it's on the elbows, it's moving up. I'm over here. Look at that backside moving. Look at them constantly checking in. No one is standing still. Everyone is moving, communicating, sliding off. If I'm calling them off as a rover, putting that pressure out. Again, not every time was like that, but we wanted the majority of the times to look like that. And just, ball pressure is something that can be adjusted with the zone that you want to play. It doesn't always have to be high pressure or sitting on an 8, but you still want to put some pressure on the ball carrier. About 12 to 15 meters usually is how far out you want to go. You don't want to go out too far, because again, you extend out and you leave these gaps here that you can see, but you also don't want to sit in, because then that allows the offense to go ahead and rotate and pass the ball without any pressure. So going into defending a drive-heavy team. So I know I talked a little bit about this and how 1v1 defense is very important. You don't want to go ahead and have someone who can't play 1v1 defense strong up top. The reason being is because if this person has to go ahead and come out and play 1v1 defense and gets beat, and that number 3 spot right here goes around, that causes this player to have to shift over. Now we got a huge gap. This player has to shift over. This player has to shift over. If one of these players misses that shift, you've got a large gap here, all that space over here for someone to cut in and be open, especially if the rover is occupied. So you want to hold strong. You don't want to overstretch the zone. Overstretching, if no one else can see what's happening, it's just going to leave vulnerabilities in that zone. So defending a drive-heavy team, you want to close the gaps and shift, like what I was saying. You want to close in here. If 4 is trying to drive, you want to close in that gap. You don't want them to drive through. You want to play solid 1v1 defense, get out, put pressure on them, prevent them from doing what they want to do, which is trying to drive in and create those gaps to find a cutter or to find a gap to go ahead and rotate the ball and drive in and have an opening. So I like to think of this as a man down defense. The rovers and the inside. On the outside, you can think that you're almost man down. In a man down defense, you have to shift towards the ball. The ball rotates fast. You're shifting towards the ball. And who is it that you're leaving open usually in a man down defense? It's the one farthest away from the ball. So again, using that example, if 3 has the ball here on the left side and they're trying to drive, here we're shifting over. Behind, we're shifting a little bit in here. Remember, we could check in. We got 3 seconds as long as you're moving in and out. This player's checking in here. The one that we're leaving open is this one all the way down here. They're not a threat. So we're having to adjust to the ball. We're going to put pressure on. We're not going to allow them to even make this pass. We're all checking in towards the ball with 6 up, being trees. By that, if a player looks up, all they're going to see are your sticks up and not see the open girl. The pass won't happen, and they will not be able to drive through. If they do, be ready to take a charge, be ready to slide to their hips, and be ready to watch the ball. This movement's got to be fast, and again, communication is so important. It's maybe just as important as that 1v1 defense. So defending a feed-heavy team is a little bit different. What the team's trying to do is trying to get the zone to rotate so that they can go ahead and try to find a cutter on the inside or possibly hit the backside to draw a shooting space. So the exterior's really got to be quick with their in and out movement. The backside, as you saw with the film against Hofstra, really was helping. They are helping me with cutters. They're helping with just clogging up that space so that you couldn't see any passes that were there and you couldn't get a skip out and a shooting space because it was such quick movement. So you got to be specific. Again, you got to use those names, especially as the ball rotates with me as the rover and me with these two elbow players here and here. Those are the names that I knew the best because we were constantly calling each other's names, saying I'm on, I'm off, pick up, pick off, all of it we were saying. So it's constantly, you got to keep talking. And again, if you're standing still, something's wrong. You got to keep moving. And knowing where the ball is. All right, so here I have an example. The ball is here at the 3 spot, and the ball is going to be passed down behind to the 2 spot. This 4 spot's going to cut in. As a rover, that's my responsibility. It's not the elbow player. It's not this interior player. It's my responsibility. It's close to the ball. This is the biggest threat. It's inside the 8. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up this 4 spot player. Now, on the backside, you see that they are going to try to cut behind me. This is where that backside exterior is very important. Every single person is checking in with their stick up, right? This player's being ready to check in, still watching it. The ball rotates over here. So eye on the ball, stick up, rotating. This interior is coming down, trying to cut off that player. You don't want this pass to come through. You've got to come in, stick up. The elbow, same thing. You're stepping in. We'll leave this player a little bit open. They make that pass. We have time to go ahead and come back out and put pressure on. You don't want to get caught too deep over here to avoid that shooting space, right? This player is going to step in. Doesn't have to be too deep, but they're stepping in over here because now that interior player is gone. We got to fill that big gap. So that player is going to go ahead and step in and cover that area. And once that ball is passed down, this elbow is just going to drop in a little bit. Not too much, again, just because the ball can rotate back up. We need to be ready, but enough to put that stick in to make this player second guess making that pass. So you see it's all together like on a string. And again, I like to use that analogy of man down defense, right? Everyone's working together. All parts are moving together. One part isn't moving with the team, it's not going to work. Something that, playing this defense I learned, and I've watched so much film to try to prove this point wrong, but I've yet to do so, is that 3 things need to happen in order for someone to score. So 3 things need to happen for someone to score. Maybe it's the rover. I didn't slide right away to this cutter. Wasn't enough pressure here on the ball, right? That's 2 things here. And then this player cutting in. Maybe they're not checking in, right? So it's always 3 things. So it's never just one person's fault. But in a zone, there's going to be a lot of responsibility shared. And things sometimes don't happen the way that they're drawn up to be. And that's something that's really important to know too. And going back to that quote, sometimes things need to fail in order for you to learn and to fix the mistakes. But that's not something you get discouraged about. The only time it is when it happens over and over again. Just like any mistake, a coach is going to tell you the first mistake, that's fine. They coach you, tell you what to not do next time. But if you keep making that same mistake, that's when it gets a little frustrating. And that's when something does need to change. Again, just always remember that the 3 things in a zone defense, it's never just on the rover. It's never on the person going out pressuring the ball. It's never on the goalie, never on any of these players. It is a whole unit Zone is really, really team defense. You know, man-to-man, sometimes you get an isolation, and maybe it's just one or two players having to slide. A zone is truly a team defense. So you got to make sure everyone's on the same page and being able to adjust. Sometimes a position, you aren't doing what you're supposed to do on the exterior, but your teammate's going to have your back. And then, you know, that's when you see that someone maybe could have scored. It's averted because your teammates are all moving together. So it's very fluid. And I think that's my favorite thing as from a zone is being able to work together. And sometimes it goes haywire where you look back and you're like, what the heck was that? But they didn't score. And I think sometimes the offense thinks too, like, what the heck is that? And it works to your advantage. So going over now with some zone defensive drills. We have the cone drill stages 1, 2, and 3, close the gap drill, and then breaking down box drill. So these are just a very small amount of the amount of drills that we did at Towson and the drills that we do now at Hopkins. But I found them very beneficial, not only as a zone player, but just as a defensive player in general. And this is things that you can do now. All it takes is just two people, close the gap. Hopefully we're back in the fall ready to go. That's something that you could do with some middies and very important for the exterior. So I have some videos that will show and demonstrate close the gap. I couldn't just because it requires more people. But in the videos, it's me against my 6'3", 235 boyfriend. So if you really want to improve that leg strength and positioning, I would go ahead and recommend going up against someone that size. So the first drill is called the cone drill stage 1. This was a Michael Molster favorite, something that I continue to do, something that I coach, giving lessons, all of that. I use this, and it helps with just fundamental defense and something to help improve the 1v1. So the defense, your job is to go ahead and make contact with the offense. You want to sit low. Your eyes are on the hips. Always thinking hips. Eyes are on the hips. You're making contact with your backhand. You'll see in the video next just what that looks like. But you really got to sit low on your toes, and you're going to be moving. Contact and making sure your eyes are on the hips are important because that tells you where the player is going to go. Offense, your job is to stay close to the cone, right? You want to stay close. You don't want the defender to lean over making contact because now they're out of position trying to make it. You want to start slow, then build up, right? You don't want to just go gun-ho, especially if this is first time doing the drill. Build up 50%, 75, and then you can go ahead and go to 100. You're running and planting and turning at 3 different cones. So looking at this image before we look at the video, the offensive player will go ahead and run, plant, turn towards the cone. So turn this way, run back, touches this cone, right? Turns here, and then is sprinting out. The defender the whole time is trying to stay with. Think like a mirror. You're trying to stay in front. You're trying to stay with that offensive player. Sometimes you might not be able to shuffle, so you got to be able to turn your hips and run with the defender. You can't shuffle as fast as someone sprinting. It's just not possible unless you are ridiculously fast. It's just not going to happen. So we'll go ahead and watch that video. Again, going up against someone who is that much bigger and stronger makes it difficult, but it does make you better. And, getting out there and working on some defense with him really helps. So you see the planting here. My backhand is on the hip, and you look at my eyes. My eyes are on the hip, always. You've got to watch the hip. So planting, turning towards the cones, and finishing through. So we're going a little bit slower, but as the speed picks up, I'm not able to shuffle. I'm going to have to run, right? I have to turn that outside foot and point it in. So looking at the toes, my foot is pointing towards the direction I'm going. I'm not crossing over my feet. I'm staying with. Keep that arm bent. Keep it strong, right? You're not using a stick in any of these drills. You're just using your hands, and that's why it's great because it's just working on your footwork. It's just fundamental defense. okay? And you see there at the end, he was straying off the cones a little bit, so I had to lean a little bit, but still not bad. We'll give him an A for effort. Moving on to cone drill stage 2. So similar idea. The only thing with this is that you're stepping off now, offensive player. At any 3 cones, you can touch 1 cone, and then you can step off. You can touch 2 cones, step off. You could touch all 3 cones, and then step off, all right? So we're adding this addition, okay? Again, no sticks, just working on that footwork, basic defense, okay? You're ready to go lateral and forward defense. Again, they will be stepping off. We want to close that space. We want to stay on them. In the zone defense, they come in, drive in, and they back off. If they're backing off, more than likely they are going to have their head up looking to feed. You've got to keep the pressure on, especially if they're near that 8-meter, right? Again, eyes on the hips, contact on the hips. Still using your hand. Don't be afraid to touch the offensive player. Imagine it's your stick, just your hand, right? Keep your elbow here, keep it strong. You're using your legs to drive out, not your arm, your legs. That's why you got to sit low. You're ready to point your toe and turn your hips with the offensive player. Once the offensive player steps off, they're going to be sprinting in either direction. Again, you cannot shuffle and stay with someone who is sprinting full speed. You have to turn your hips and you have to run with them. Keep the pressure on their hips with your hand. Eyes are where? Hips. Hopefully you guys aren't tired yet because I'm going to be saying hips a lot. And that Shakira song, Hips Don't Lie, it's true. She knew what she was talking about. So offense, again, stay close to the cones. You're stepping off at any cone. In this diagram here, the offensive player goes, touches the 1 cone, turns, touches the 2nd cone, and then they step off. The defender is stepping up. Stay on your toes, not your heels. As soon as that offensive player steps back and that defender comes up and makes contact, you're sprinting through either direction. Sprint hard, okay? Again, same thing, start slow, and then go ahead and build up. So I'll be going through this again with him. So just watch again, my eyes, where they are, watch my feet, and then watch my hand. Stepping up, making contact, and I'm here. Sometimes I have to use 2 hands, right? If it's a stronger offensive player, it's okay to do it for a second, but then you want to adjust. So watch, eyes are on the hip, right? I'm here, I'm really trying to use my legs. Really trying to drive out with my legs. If I'm trying to push him with my hands and with my little arm against that frame, it is not going to work. And if you also think about it, if I'm extending out, trying to use my arms and the defender or the offensive player steps back, what is it now going to look like? A push. And sometimes we get those calls. Anyone that's played defense knows it's frustrating because you didn't push her. But offensive players are smart. They're crafty. If they bend down and dip their shoulder and you're extending out using just your arms and not your legs, it is going to be a foul. So that is why we are not using sticks. For the last stage, stage 3, it's going to look a little bit different for a setup. We still have the 5 cones, 2.5 yards apart, but now the defensive and offensive player are actually going to be lined up across from each other. So I would say the defensive player maybe about 5 to 7 yards out, and then the offensive player just a few yards out longer, just to allow the defensive player to get over the cones first and establish themselves. But it's going to be kind of like a bang-bang situation. So you don't want the defender just sitting here waiting for you, but you also don't want to get it to the point where they barely got over the cone and now you're sprinting to a side. So defense, some things to know. You guys sprint past the cone. So you're trying to get on the other side of the cones. Do not sit back on your heels. If you do that and the player goes in one direction, you're not going to be able to make contact and you're not going to be able to explode into where they are trying to go. All right? Another thing that's important, you are going to where they are going. If they are breaking off and you watch their hips and they're starting to go this way, you don't want to meet them here. You don't want to meet where they had already been. You want to meet them to where they are going. Okay? That's important. Go to where they are going. Again, use your legs. You want to use your legs. This offensive player is running. You're trying to get inside this last cone. You're trying everything you can. This is your 8 meter to get inside the 8 meter and score. The defender, you cannot let that happen. You got to drive them out. You can't do that with your hands and arms. You've got to use your legs. All right? Offense, make them work, okay? If you're going through this and you're not going full effort once you get to that 100% mark, you're not helping them, okay? Whether that's your own teammate, parent, sibling, you got to be competitive. You got to make them better. That's the only way that these drills are going to work, is that you are pushing each other to be the best that you can be. So go ahead and see the setup here on the video. All right, trying to get over that cone. You see him make that contact, right? I got to drive out with the legs. Making that contact, driving out, adjusting. Watch the feet, pointing, turning out. In this drill too, you could be ready to take a charge, right? The offensive player is coming in hot and they're trying to really overpower you and your positioning is great. It's going to be a charge every time. So you really got to keep them out and drive them out. So this is the next drill. It's the close the gap drill. I don't have a video for this one just because from the diagram you need multiple people, but it's not too complicated of a drill. This is a really important drill for zone defense for the exterior, okay? Closing the gaps, thinking driving teams, this is very important. Even the pass-heavy teams, passing to the backside and having to close the gap from someone trying to drive in. It's all very, very important. So defense here, we're going to have 4 defenders, all right? And then on the offensive side, you're going to have 3. 1 between each set of defenders. The ball is going to be back here around the crease. It could be a coach, volunteer player, whoever you want it to be. Their only job is just to pass it to one of these 3 offensive players. Defense, you're looking forward. You're not looking back. You're not going to see where the ball is going. You have no idea. All you're doing is focusing on what's in front of you, okay? When they start to drive in, again, you need to step to where they are going. If you try to step to where they were and they're going full speed, they're just going to run through your sticks and go in and score, okay? You need to slide where they are going. Again, great opportunity to take a charge. Sit low. Claim that space. Your defender, you guys are talking, right? If you play it out, which you can, it's up to you. If you want to play out a little double team, talk. One person going for the check, one person is on the hips, okay? Offense, you're looking like you're ready to drive. You are selling it up top here. If the ball's going here, you can't just have this player looking like they're ready to drive. The defense is going to know, especially if you're just standing here with your stick down. Everyone has their sticks up ready to go. Again, this is helping that defense. You need to make them better. Keep them honest. If you want to go ahead and do a jab step here, do it. Make this defender have to come in and now have to adjust. Sometimes it happens, right? It's not going to be perfect. Offensive player, you can't be afraid to go ahead and go with speed. You can't be afraid to just run through. If it's just their sticks, but their bodies aren't behind it, run through it. The sticks aren't going to hurt you. If the player's getting there and you still can run through, go ahead. Defense needs to learn. That's part of getting better. Defense, say thank you, get up, and accept the charge, all right? So you see that ball passed up, offensive player running through, they're sliding in, closing that gap, all right? Good for middies, switching, rotating through, but that's what the drill is looking like. So going through the last drill here, it's a breakdown box drill, all right? So this is going to be a little different setup from the other cones. You have about 10 yards and 15 yards, so it's going to be in the shape of a rectangle. The offensive player is going to be lined up opposite of the defensive player. The offensive player's goal is to get through these 2 cones, all right? And they're trying to beat the defensive players coming up and try to get by them. You can go this way, you can go that way, you can try a spin move, you can try anything. Defense, your job is to not let them cross those cones. Try to keep them inside that box for as long as possible. I'd say about maybe 10 seconds max. So Imagine a check-in and check-out, right? You just checked in, and now you're going to have to check out. That player in your zone just caught the ball, and they're trying to drive through. You've got to be ready to break down your steps, be on your toes. You could go forward, you could go lateral, okay? You've got to be ready to adjust to that. Offense, you're going full speed, okay? You're trying to get between those cones. Change your direction and being deceptive is important to help the defense get better. You don't just want to just run in a straight line, let them push you off. Because in a game, you know you're not going to let that happen. You're going to try to beat the defender to score a goal. So we'll go ahead and watch a video of what that looks like here. Something to know too, you can still take a charge in this drill. So we're lined up opposite. I'm watching those hips, ready, trying to make contact. Really having to use my legs because he's strong and bigger than me. I got to try to drive him out. Watch, drive out. So sometimes they might try to slide back, right? A little hesitation, try to roll. He did beat me on one rollback. I didn't include it, but that's just part of being ready, right? Stare, roll back. I'm here. I'm making contact, keeping the contact the whole time. And then here, staying in front, he tries to bind me up. It's a charge, okay? You want to stay on a hip. You want to stay in front. Do not let the attacker tell you where you're going. It is always up to the defender. You are taking away that space, okay? That's it that I have now. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope everyone is staying safe and staying healthy. For questions, you can go ahead and email me there, twolf1@jhu.edu. You can ask me now as well. The PDF has a lot of information that's written out. If I missed anything or if I covered something, you want to go back and look at that PDF. It has a lot. And, if you want some of those videos, I can send those too. But thank you so much for listening.
So, Tiana, we've got a question already in the bank here, and it's about the one-on-one drills. Would you recommend using a short stick or a shorty stick? I guess like the training stick.
Right. You can use that. I know that we specifically didn't use it. We just wanted to use our hands because we really didn't want the focus to be on the positioning of the hands. We wanted it to be more the positioning of the feet and your body and where your eyes are looking. So we break it down from the very beginning. So if you want to build up to it, you can. Just again, the reason not to is just you don't want to rely on your arms. You really want to condition your body to knowing that that's a body positioning I want, and I don't want to have to rely on my stick. And then once you put the stick in your hand, you're like, oh my gosh, this is way easier. Especially first, having some teammates that like to foul, you just throw the stick away. And now we're just playing defense like basketball. So,
right. And I got a few questions for you that are coaching related.
All right.
So you come out of college, graduate, and now you're on the sideline. Now you're in a different social category. You're in a different hierarchy. As a student athlete, how'd you handle that your first year? Because it's not like you switch schools.
Right.
Now you're coaching your friends, your teammates.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a big adjustment. And what's funny is when I first graduated, I got a real world job. So I worked at a financial company and I was there for 6 months, got my Series 6, Series 63, I think. But it wasn't for me. I was sitting there in the office watching the weather. I'm like, it's cold as anything outside, but I would love to be coaching right now and be around the sport. And I talked to Sonia LaMonica, and she's like, we'd love to have you as a volunteer. I knew that was going to be an issue. We talked about it a little bit. And the same thing kind of at Hopkins. A few of the girls I knew just from through my boyfriend. He went to Hopkins. So it's definitely a big adjustment, but the girls respect you. And, you had that relationship, so just kind of making it clear, like, it's a different atmosphere now. Like, I'm a coach, I'm not a player. You can say certain things to me, but others you can't, that maybe you would have as a player. And I think just establishing that from the get-go, but I never had any issues, even at Towson. I never had issues. I think the girls just felt more comfortable, if anything else. Hopkins, they really welcomed me with open arms and, respect me at the start and, comfortable with coming to me about whatever, but knowing what my role is on the team. And I think just being younger, you do always have that little gray area, but they know why I'm there. And they come to me maybe more so just because I'm around that age group.
Right. So the boundaries are set.
Right.
They're respected. Yeah. And,
right.
You move on. Plus practices are pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's always full. Sometimes you go over the times and everything, it's just, it happens. So maybe sometimes I'm able to jump in with the girls. That's always fun too, is being able to play with them and,
right.
get out there and do some like training sessions with them. So that's always fun too.
Yeah. So for anybody that's on, if you got questions for Tiana, please put them in the Q&A box. We still got a few minutes left before 3:00 here. So I'll promise not to keep her beyond that 3:00 deadline. But, if you do have anything, so there's a comment sitting in there, and, I'll read it out loud because I think the same thing, because I'm just sitting back here, and I mean, you and I have gotten to know each other, throughout the summer and whatnot. But this is from head coach Janine Tucker. Tiana just crushed that presentation. Very proud of her. And I thought you did too. I mean, you and I have talked throughout the week here, just little things going on, and, thorough. That's one thing I would say is thorough. Like, I kind of looked at the PDF before I uploaded it for people, and I just thought to myself, you know what, this is a really good takeaway. This is something that they'll be able to actually print, use, and be able to actually reflect on in their own presentations, or their own practice plans. So
yeah.
This is a great question. What are the most difficult breakdowns to fix?
Yeah, so if he's talking about a zone, I think what I know from Towson and what I know from Hopkins is always ball pressure in a zone. It's getting the players to actually be comfortable with going out and making a pressure and not doing that. So that, I'd say, was actually a big breakdown, because teams are able to rotate the ball and move the ball, and your zone is shifting so much, and that creates some problems. I'd say that's a pretty number one breakdown, is just making sure that people know, like on the zone, they need to be able to go out and play defense. If they come in again with that step back drill, you're stepping up, closing that space. That is a huge breakdown. And then the other one is just resetting, coming down in a fast break. I didn't get into that, and there's so many things of a zone, and that's what makes it fun but frustrating too, both defensively and offensively, is there's so many things that can happen.
Right.
Coming down in a fast break, you might not be set. You have to just slow down the ball. And now you might have someone who plays a specific spot up top who's caught down low. Maybe it's a midfielder who's caught behind. I think that's sometimes a breakdown too, because it's trying to find the right time to get players to switch back to their positions. And if you choose the wrong time, now you got some open spots. So I say those are kind of the breakdowns. But again, just film is always something that, you rely on. And as a player, I didn't watch enough film, and I really should have. And now as a coach, I understand just how important it is, and seeing that and seeing those mistakes so that they don't happen again. If that answered your question, let me know if that didn't answer that question.
Quick question then. How much film do you watch now? Say you're in season. How much do you watch per week? Just a rough number.
As a coach?
Yep.
Oh, man. I don't know. Hours. I'm lucky that I've per day.
Per day, hours.
Well, when you get into the chunk of the season where you have a game on the weekend and then a game midweek, that's a lot. And that's what I was learning with Towson, and then especially with Hopkins. And I would watch, the whole game. So however long that game is, maybe like 2 hours. And then you go back and you break it down. So that's like maybe 4 hours from just that one game. And then you got to watch practice film. So there you go. That's like another hour. So I couldn't tell you a number, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
but that's what makes the best coaches. And, that's what I've learned from all these coaches, is that every time I go into their office or something, their computer's up, films on it.
Right.
And notes are sitting right by it.
Comment, easily one of the best sessions. Live, it was great. It'll be a great rewatch on YouTube. The drills are great. So that was our friend down in Virginia.
Thanks, Chris.
Now, he also wanted to know, what's the biggest lesson you learned going from, just a player, which I don't know if people realize you still play.
Right.
But collegiately, just a player to coaching, what was the biggest lesson you took?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson I took was that there's so much knowledge to be shared, and just how much I learned from all of the coaches. And what's something that's really neat, and just that I know that I have a lot of pride in, and what other coaches have pride in, is helping the next generation. So I've learned from the coaches that I have, and now I have this amazing opportunity as a player and as a coach to share with the younger generation, so that when they go on and they play in college, I can say, maybe I helped them with that. I helped them get to that spot that they're in now. And I think that was one of the biggest things, is, to share my knowledge as a player and as a coach, and to not be afraid to help people, and not to be intimidated by so many great legends and coaches who I'm surrounded by, like asking those questions. I think being vulnerable. You don't know everything. I might have the accolades that I do, and, I'm very grateful for them, but I know nothing compared to some of the coaches, to Coach Janine Tucker. I know nothing. Tara, Michael Moster, Sonia LaMonica. I mean, I can go down the list. I know nothing, but I'm very, very excited to just be getting started on this journey as a coach, and to be able to first start with this. Thank you again, Coach Tucker. This is my first ever presentation like this. First time. Nervous. Right? Tara said, if you aren't nervous, that means that you don't care. If you are nervous, that means you care. So
yeah,
that's something that hopefully I get to continue to do. And I'm going to be 24 next week, so I know I'm still young. I'm still very lucky to be able to playing, but just coaching, it's every day I learn something new. So
this is a developmental question, and I've got two trains of thoughts on this myself, but at what age group should we introduce the zone defense?
That's a great question. I think there's sometimes girls who are trying to learn it in elementary school. You can't do that. You got to teach them man-to-man. That's always going to be the defense that you have. Even at Towson, when we were running a zone primarily, we had the man-to-man, because sometimes the zone wasn't working for us, and we had to be able to adjust. So I would say definitely later middle school, like maybe 8th grade, going into high school, making sure that they're aware of how to play man-to-man, but also know how to play zone. I would just wait for them to kind of develop those 1v1 skills a little bit in the sliding, because the zone is a little bit different, a little bit more technical. But I think that introducing it to them when they're about to go into high school is great, because then it shows that these defensive players, these midfielders, are able to learn different defenses. They can learn other things, so that when they are getting recruited, coaches know, well, they are able to adjust. They can play more things than just a man-to-man. Like, they're capable of doing that. So I would say just wait a little bit later, 13, 14, for those skills to really set in, so that they learn. And I think it also depends on the team. The coaches know best the IQ of players, if they're able to handle it and everything. You don't want to just throw it at them and them not get it. So step by step, definitely start with those drills and build it up. But there's no reason to run a zone defense when they're like 10 years old. And even if you wait all the way until just high school, that's okay.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of time.
It does. I mean, typically I won't introduce it until they're juniors.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just Sean Nadlin from Towson and I were talking about it last night, and we just, both of us are firm believers in fundamental. If I had my way, I probably wouldn't even teach it to them.
Right.
Just let the college decision go, because I know if I teach them the fundamental footwork, the IQ, being able to play that zone. The only difference is when they go to play the zone, they're not going to be my guys wouldn't have the aptitude that they'd be worried about getting beat.
Right.
Whereas in the zone, you're okay because you have help in certain areas, right? So
Yeah, no,
but
definitely.
I agree with you. The later you introduce it, as long as you've worked on the fundamentals and you've got that other start, I think you're okay.
Right. Yeah. And that's what we did when I coached club. We had a backer defense that we do here and there, but we wanted primarily to play that. And I think it would be the same thing with the zone. Still play primarily man. That's best way to really showcase the girls who are playing that defensive set. And if you want to play a zone here and there, go ahead. But I want to fully rely on that.
It can be fun too, right? You're throwing
Oh,
something
yeah.
new. Right?
No, it's fun when it's going well. It's not fun when they keep scoring on you and beating you and getting the 3 seconds and all that. That's not fun. There's a few games that I still remember that we could have done a little better.
Weren't fun.
No, they were not fun. Not at all.
Cynthia, where can we find the PDF? You should have seen it when you logged into the Summit site. There was an attachment. Failing that, I can try and upload it when we get the video up. So, and if not, shoot me an email and I'll make sure you get the PDF document. So, we got 2 more minutes. If you want to fire a Q&A in, let's go. I'm going to give you a question just because you and I have talked about this already. Stick skills. You've talked about box. You've talked about what you saw in the summer. From the time you went from Towson, started coaching and seeing that boxing, what's the primary difference? Because you've got girls at Hopkins now that actually grew up playing a little bit of box and field. Yeah. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I've said it to you. I'll say it to anyone that I meet. I wish that box was the thing when I was younger because I absolutely would have played it. It's just different enough where you're getting so many different skills as a defender, as an offensive player. I know as a defender, my stick skills, my shooting has gotten so much better just from playing box and just from coaching it. Working with Jake, working with other guys who played box lacrosse. It teaches you spacing. It teaches you how to be aggressive, Yeah. And if it translates over to the field, you get a few calls, that's okay. But it takes you out of that comfort zone. And it really makes you comfortable with such a small space. And you get on the field, you have this large space. It's like, oh my goodness, like there's so much that I can do. I would recommend it for anyone that has it as an opportunity to try it, to just at least try it. You may not like it, but try it. It's physical, so it does take a little bit getting used to. But the skills you get out of it are skills that you just can't get on a field. You just can't get that 2-man game like you do in box. You can't get the defensive slides, the defensive positioning like you do in box. Definitely the stick skills, the shooting, it gets so in detail with box. And using a guy stick and a girl stick, I just found myself even more comfortable with the girl stick. Playing with the guy stick, you have a deeper pocket. I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. But you get comfortable with it, and the more you work with it, the more I felt that I was getting better with the girl stick, the more confident I felt. And I've never been that great with my stick work. And that's something that I will always have to work on and continue to work on. But I found that really, really helped me and helped close that gap a little bit. And I just wish I didn't find that out when I was, now 23. I wish I found that out when I was like 13. And you have the Canadian teammates of mine who come from the box background to field, and, they dominate. And it's a different type of sport, and it's so beneficial. And I enjoy watching it. And I think, anyone that can watch it, play it, and, see for yourself.
Yeah. Well, a lot of translatable skills, that's for sure. Women's programs up here have come a long way. So, but when you're watching the field and box, it's actually nice to see the skill sets being transferred, because I can see guys coming back who've played field all spring and they're coming back to play box for me. And I can see what they're thinking. I've been in that position. I understand the spacing, the size, and the only thing I keep saying to them is, look, you got to take about 300 or 400 shots to acclimate yourself to the smaller net. Other than that, it's all the same, guys. And I can really see that starting to translate into the women's game. Kelly talked about it. Janine touched on it the other night. So it's funny and about time that the world actually started getting a little bit smaller when it came to, all versions of the game. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I know Spalina does a lot up there too. And we're trying here. Hop, we play some box, but it's not with like equipment or anything on. But would love to really kind of get that growing here on the East Coast. And I think that would be something that helps the youth programs and just helps everyone in the sport, especially the girls.
Yeah. Well, listen, we hit the 3 o'clock marker, went a little bit over. I wanted to thank you for being on. I do need to quickly thank some sponsors real quick. Uncommon Fit, Franklin Par Team, Bear Paw Lacrosse Events, Apex Lacrosse Events, Manitoba Lacrosse, Major Series Lacrosse, and the Sticks and Picks podcast, which I know you know intricately. So
Yes, I know that podcast. Go
listen,
ahead and
if
listen.
people want to interact with you, where's Twitter, Instagram? What's the best way to get you? Or email?
So my email again on that PDF, twolf1@jhu.edu. My other email is my last name, wallpher3@gmail.com. Social media that I use the most is Instagram. It's my name, Tiana, 2 N's, Wallpher. You can find me on there. And then Twitter, it's twallpher3. So all basically my name's unique. So I'm sure if you type it in, you'll be able to find me. So
Very easy to find. I got you.
yeah.
If you can't, check out the Global Summit Twitter line because we've got her on there a bunch of times too. So listen, Tiana, thank you for everything. You have a great day and enjoy yourself, okay? Stay safe.
Thanks so much, Brad. You too. Bye.